It's Monday, the 1st of November 2021. Welcome to the Fear and Greed Business Headlines, where we give you the top 5 business stories that you need to know in just 5 minutes. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Morning, Michael.
All right, 5 stories, 5 minutes. Here we go. We have been waiting for months now for the UN Climate Change Summit in Glasgow. There has been a lot of talk, a lot of pressure, and it all kicks off today. How likely is it to actually be successful?
Well, Michael, it hasn't got off to a great start. The G20 meeting was held in Rome over the weekend, which Scott Morrison attended, while the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres called on the G20 leaders to reach agreement over phasing out coal-fired power stations by 2030. That was pretty much rejected. Instead, it looks like the language out of Glasgow will be more about reaching net zero targets by around the middle of the century, not 2050, as been the case until now. India, one of the largest emitters, has ruled out a net zero target. US President Joe Biden is still struggling for support for his massive climate change spending package. And China has set a net zero target for 2060, but we don't know how they're going to get it. The other thing that was interesting over the weekend was the relationship between Scott Morrison and French President Emmanuel Macron. We know that last Thursday night, Mr. Morrison had his first conversation with Mr. Macron. Mr. Macron criticised the PM for a breach of trust. Then over the weekend, Joe Biden described Australia's handling of the subs debacle as clumsy. This is a $90 billion subs deal that we dumped back in September. Now, Mr. Morrison hit back saying Australia had made the right decision in our interests, but he certainly enters the week not looking quite as chummy as he did with Mr. Biden and very much on the back foot when it comes to climate change.
Yeah, big story, that one, and we will be talking about it a lot over the next week or two. On to story number 2, the markets. Is it going too far to say that the local share market on Friday was a bit of a bloodbath?
It sure was. Down 1.5% to 7,324 points. But what was really remarkable was just how broad the sell-off was. In fact, the only sub-indices not to fall by at least 1% were the materials and healthcare sub-indices. All the banks fell. National Australia Bank was down 2.5%. Commonwealth, Westpac dropped more than 2%. ANZ was off 1.6%. It was widespread. Wesfarmers, Telstra, Goodman Group, Rio Tinto, Aristocrat Leisure, Xero, QBE, it goes on. They all fell by more than 2%. Wall Street, ironically, finished slightly higher despite disappointing results from Amazon and Apple. Really, there's a lot of nervousness in the markets right now about inflation, and that's not helping the local bourse.
All right, on to story number 3. James Packer told the WA Royal Commission on Friday that he's going to comply with the Victorian Royal Commission's recommendation that he cut his shareholding back to less than 5%.
Yes, it's interesting. It was a recommendation, as you mentioned, in the Victorian Commission, though one the state government didn't say it was prioritising. Mr. Packer's stake in Crown is worth around $2.4 billion, but he wants time to complete the sell down. Now, the Royal Commission in Victoria said it should be done in 3 years, but he wants 5 years, which I dare say he'll be given. His appearance on Friday included a defence of the group's oversight of the management in its Perth casino, even though he agreed the parent group had a poor governance record. Now, one example was Mr. Packer, who's chair of Crown Burswood in Perth, didn't attend a board meeting in 3 years. Quite remarkable. Its shares jumped last Tuesday when it found it would keep its licence in Victoria, but have been sold off since then. Its New South Wales licence is still up in the air, and obviously we need to hear from Western Australia. I wouldn't be surprised, Michael, if one day we wake up and Mr. Packer's done a deal to get out.
Okay, story number 4 this morning. Sean, I love talking about house prices and pretty much anything to do with property. So story 4 today is the rush for fixed rate loans.
Yep, sure is. Fixed rate loans are priced off bond yields, and these have risen sharply in response to fears about inflation. So borrowers are trying to get in and fix their home loan rates before they get too high. Fixed home loan rates have already started rising, but they still remain relatively low. Now, this all comes on the back of economists thinking that interest rates will start rising in 12 months' time. And if that happens, there's a real chance that certainly the growth in house prices will slow, but there's also a chance that house prices will actually go backwards.
All right, story number 5, and I know it's only Monday, but I reckon this could be the most remarkable story of the week already. Microsoft regaining the crown as the world's most valuable company.
Yes, its share price rose 2.2% over the weekend, taking its value to $2.49 trillion. Apple's share price fell nearly 2%, meaning its value fell to $2.46 trillion. You have those two companies worth $5 trillion, which is what, about 6.6 Aussie, which actually is more than 2/3 of the whole value of the Australian residential market. These companies are huge.
It's absolutely incredible. That's it. The top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. Thank you very much, Sean.
Thanks, Michael.
It's Monday, the 1st of November, 2021. Remember to hit follow on the podcast. And if you'd like something a little bit longer than 5 minutes, then you can find our other podcast called Fear and Greed on your podcast platform. You can always find more information and plenty of interviews at fearandgreed.com.au and sign up for our free daily newsletter. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was the Fear and Greed Business Headlines. Have a great day.